Hey guys, this is my review for the Samsung Galaxy Nexus running ice cream sandwich. The first thing that I like about this phone is that it's thin and lightweight. Although its body is made out of plastic, a lot of people will probably throw it in a plastic case anyways, so I don't think it's a major issue. The screen is the phone's best hardware feature. I love how there's no buttons on it and it has this slight curve to it. It just looks really exotic. Now, I'm only going to focus my review on a few aspects of the phone, namely web browsing performance, multitasking performance, Google Maps and YouTube, the camera functions with an emphasis on video recording, and the ergonomics of using a large phone. So I'm not going to talk much about Ice Cream Sandwich specifically because it's already been well covered by other reviews, but I will go over, of course, some of the core apps and the general performance of the phone. So the first thing I want to show you is the web browser in Ice Cream Sandwich, and we're going to test it out by visiting a few popular websites. So I've gone to theverge.com and I'm going to load up the full desktop version of their website. And you can see the thin blue line underneath the URL showing the load status of the web page. And for this particular load, it looks like the web page isn't going to come in bits and pieces, but sort of pop in all at once. So after the website is loaded, you can see that scrolling through it is relatively fluid and smooth. And with the screen's high resolution, I can actually read a lot of that tiny looking text on the web page. Now, double tap to zoom is a little bit broken in this copy of Ice Cream Sandwich. You can see right there the zoom in was off-centered. This is, it's obviously a flaw in the browser that hopefully they'll correct in a future version of Ice Cream Sandwich. It is a bit annoying. Now in landscape mode, it's a very nice experience to web browse since it's just like having a widescreen monitor. And I'm going to show you pinch to zoom. You can see as it zooms into the image, the screen gets very choppy and it starts to lose tracking even of my fingers. This is a surprising performance problem that just shouldn't be there. I mean, this is a modern phone with a dual core processor, and it looks like pinch to zoom, at least in the web browser, is always quite choppy when you're zooming into images. So now I've decided to run some embedded video, and I just want to turn the phone over and show you where the speaker of this phone is located on the bottom rear. And this is a terrible place to put a speaker. I could barely hear stuff coming out of it because, for one, it's low powered, two, my fingers are usually covering it, and three, the audio is being projected away from me. So if you use this phone to watch videos, you might need earphones if you have any sort of ambient noise. And here I'm showing pinch to zoom while I have the video running. It was a little bit choppy, not too bad. And what I wanted to figure out was how to maximize this embedded video. Eventually, it just seemed to break the browser. I'm not sure if that was the web browser's fault or the website's. So off to my next site, which is my own blog, and I chose this website because I'm running a simple version of WordPress, a very optimized and minimal version that loaded pretty fast, as you saw, and the performance appears to be pretty good, but I'm missing the header image for some reason of that post, and I hit reload and it pops in, but now it's cropped. And I also noticed it's missing my Google AdSense bar, so there were some problems even with my simple WordPress install. Now on to Engadget.com, the full desktop version of their website. As you can see, it renders very well. It looks the way it should, but I did notice that I had the text wrap on, so I wanted to take off this sort of auto-fit text wrap feature and just see how the paragraphs appear when I'm looking at the web page natively. And you can see the paragraph now of the article is much wider, but unfortunately, of course, the pinch to zoom doesn't work, so it just cuts it off. But other than that, Engadget looked pretty good. So the next site that I wanted to bring up was Boy Genius Report. And the reason why I chose this site is because it's rather infamous for being data heavy and poorly optimized. So the browser thinks the web page is fully loaded, but of course I'm missing a ton of images. Now this isn't really specific to Ice Cream Sandwich or the Nexus, Galaxy Nexus phone. This site tends to load poorly on any smartphone I've used, and even my desktop browser I think has slight delays here and there. But after the images pop in, it looks like the website looks pretty much as it's supposed to. And it was just a real data heavy website, very slow to load. So the next thing I want to show you is Google Maps. Now Google Maps in Ice Cream Sandwich is probably the best experience you're going to get on any smartphone platform. And I'm going to go to a big city here and just see how it looks, and try to bring up the satellite mode, I believe. So I hit this 3 dots, which is the menu in most applications, and I'm just going to go into layers and pick satellite view. And you can see it looks pretty good. With that high resolution screen and being so large, I actually felt like I was using a tablet more than a smartphone. So it was a very good Google Maps experience. Now I used a 2-finger gesture to tilt the angle of the map, and right away the performance dipped down quite a bit. So you can see there's quite a bit of input lag, and the frame rate looked like it took a major hit. So here I am in terrain mode, and again pinch to zoom and scrolling around was pretty lagged. You definitely want to have top-down view when you're in Google Maps. So this is my multitasking test. I just used Google Maps for around 2 minutes, and now I go back to my 3 web pages that I had loaded up, and they have been kicked from memory. After they load up, then I go back to Google Maps, and sure enough, Google Maps has been kicked from memory. So the Galaxy Nexus has a gig of RAM, but it looks like it won't hold all your websites and applications in memory when you're going back and forth. Now the websites are in memory, and that's because I went back to Maps only for a brief moment and then back to my websites. So you can do multitasking and task switching pretty well with this phone, of course, but don't expect that an entire gig of RAM is going to be used for your applications. The phone has to handle the Android operating system, for instance, in addition. So I'm now checking out my battery status and settings. This is probably one of my favorite features of the phone. You can see that my web browser is using CPU mostly in the foreground, and 19% of my battery has been used by the browser. And when I go to Maps, only 5% of my battery is being used by this application, and most of the time was spent in keep awake status, not CPU in the foreground. So there's some rather technical but very interesting information there for people who like to keep an eye on what's eating up their battery. So this is my next test. I'm in YouTube. I'm using the voice dictation. It took 2 tries, but voice dictation worked pretty well, and I managed to get up my, Battleship 2012 trailer loaded. Now YouTube on this phone is absolutely stunning. The videos, if you have it set to high quality, are going to take up the full screen when you go into landscape mode. You can see that the buttons will just disappear, and boom, you're looking at a absolutely gorgeous 720p resolution video. And I just showed you there how I'm pinching the phone between my fingers. It's very comfortable to hold in landscape mode. You can see this HD TV clip takes up the entire phone screen. It just looks amazing. The color, the contrast, everything. You definitely want to use this phone to look at YouTube videos or your own videos. Now here we're doing the camera app, and you can see in slow motion, look at my right thumb. As I move it into landscape mode, these pesky software buttons appear right underneath my thumb, right near the edge of the phone. This is sort of a minor annoyance. I just showed it because it happened more than once. And once the camera app is loaded up, things perform just fine, of course. And I'm showing the touch to focus, and now I'll get into video mode. So video mode takes around 2 seconds to load, but once you hit that record button, things start up rather instantaneously. So I just recorded a clip there, and now I'm going to show you the front-facing camera. It's a pretty decent front-facing camera, nothing special, but it'll get the job done for video chat. And I'll hit the thumbnail icon. It'll first bring me to this screen. It looks like you're going to be able to play the video, but actually hit the play button, and now you're in the actual gallery media browser. And there's my video clip. And now I'm going to share a image that I took with a camera over Bluetooth to a nearby computer. So there are many share options that they give for distributing your media, and they worked really well. So now I'm going to show you one more thing. This is another little glitch. You go into the camera app and then you go into the task switcher, and it sort of forgets the orientation of the phone. So you can see it still thinks I'm in landscape mode. This is, another little rough edge in Ice Cream Sandwich that I'm sure they'll iron out in a future version. But I did, notice a few quirky things, of course. And here is my video test for the 720p mode, 30 frames per second. Things started off really well, and then the camera decided to focus on the ground instead of these markers. When things were in focus, things looked really sharp, and you can see I'm filming the beer cans now, and you can read all the text. It's really quite a good image quality in 720p. So I'm going to zoom the camera in. I'm just going to physically move it in really fast and see how many seconds it takes to pull focus. With this darker beer can, it takes a few seconds, but it does get the job done. Now I'm going to test the auto exposure feature. I've gone from the bright box to my dark camera, and this is taking quite a while. It took about 6 seconds for it to pull focus and adjust the exposure correctly. But filming this brightly lit wallpaper, everything looked really good. At least in 720p mode, it seemed like it pulled focus in a reasonable amount of time. Now here's my 1080p mode at 24 frames per second. This Christmas tree has a ton of detail, of course, and the phone seemed to struggle pulling focus and setting the exposure correctly. You can see in this freeze frame there's a lot of macro blocking, a lot of mud. This isn't motion blur, this is codec. This is the codec sort of failing under the heavy load of all this detail. And when I looked at the video file, I realized that 1080p mode is recorded at around 9 to 10 megabits per second, which is, pretty low considering that this codec doesn't seem to be very efficient. So I moved the camera around, and I couldn't really get 1080p mode to lock onto anything for some reason. And eventually I realized it was sort of focused on the ground in the bottom left there on the tiles, and not on the table or this puzzle piece. And for some reason 1080p mode just didn't work that well until a little later. I had a few beers and I was eating chips, and you can see in this freeze frame that now 1080p mode is locking on properly. The colors look good, the exposure is perfect, and I'm getting a very good sharp image. And part of the reason is because I am gently moving the phone. I'm not, moving it around and walking around with it. I'm giving it enough time to focus on stuff. So this is the rear facing camera, 5 megapixel still image. Under regular office lighting, it produced some very good looking photos. So the last thing I'm going to talk about is the ergonomics of the phone. I tend to use my phone with one hand. I'll be standing on a crowded commuter train or walking through public. I generally want to have the option of using my phone with one hand. And with the Galaxy Nexus, this is a real challenge. I mean, my hands aren't very big, and the reach of my thumb to get these bottom buttons like the back and the home button, which are absolutely essential to reach, it's almost impossible actually. I have to have the phone so high up in my hand that it feels like I'm going to drop it, and here I have a comfortable grip on the phone, but my thumb doesn't come anywhere close to reaching those buttons. It's almost comical. So using this phone in one hand is going to be a real challenge unless you have very large hands. So that's been my review for the Samsung Galaxy Nexus. I think it's an excellent phone, and if you're in the market for an Android smartphone, this is definitely the one to get. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.